Welcome back to another episode of Games I've Been Playing. Yes, I'm alive, and apologies that some of the content has been a bit slow lately. Life and school and work have all been getting in the way of everything, and it's been really difficult to stream and work on videos much more regularly lately. Hell, if you're watching this right now, thank you so much for your patience and for your continued support. I know I'm a very small channel at the moment, and in terms of everything, but you still watching this, still supporting it, I really appreciate it. And trust me when I say I'm trying my hardest to make time for these videos and hopefully for more fun streams in the future. With that out of the way, let's get into it and honestly talk about some games and what I've been playing. And like always, I think at least, I'm going to start off with games I checked out, some quick thoughts on games I don't have much to say about, and finally ending off with games I beat and complete. So, let's get into it. So for the past few months, I decided to revisit Fallout 76 for a bit, and I had a great time. I dropped off of it because I eventually got bored, but for me personally, it served as that perfect podcast game to just chill with every night. The game is certainly much better than it was at launch, and I'm honestly surprised that it's getting so much support and updates and regular content that even I, still, me kind of replaying it, I haven't even touched. But for fans of the game and of the series, hell, good for you. Yeah, combat is still a bit janky with shots or hits registering late or simply having that general Bethesda jank to it. But if you're able to look past that and have a decent time with it, like I did, I certainly did, just chilling, looting, and shooting, and even hopping on with a friend and doing a couple bounties, which was fun. It's similar to Sea of Thieves for me, since it's more of a game where you make your own fun, and that fun is amplified with friends. You kind of make your own story. You kind of set off and try to figure out what you want to do. Sure, you got quests here and there, and a whole story, quote unquote, but honestly, I made my own character, roleplayed as this kind of fresh new vault person that kind of becomes douchey because you realize the world's fucked up. So I kind of made my own story and kind of chilled with that, and I had a ton of fun with that. So yeah, go check it out again. It's on Game Pass, like most of these games will be, because I had a great time with it. So yeah, good recommendation right there. So this was an interesting game to experience that can be summed up pretty easily. It's Monster Hunter with guns, more or less. I can never get into the Monster Hunter series, so I may be way off base on this one, but if Monster Hunter had guns, I feel like it would play similarly to this game. Years ago, I played the first game, and it was fine, and now playing this sequel, this game is just as fine. There's fun to be had with the shooting, button mashing, and more shooting. Mechanically, the game isn't as deep as a Monster Hunter game. It's a co-op shooter where you do simple objectives, and that's about it. Maybe it does get more engaging towards the second half, but from what I've played, it just felt kind of repetitive. But it's still a little fun, I guess. I don't know. It just didn't hit for me, personally. Again, with the hype for Metroid Dread, I really want to get into the series and actually play the games. And the Prime series were the games I was most excited for, and boy was I not disappointed. I loved my time with Metroid Prime, and it was kind of weird to go back and play a game on the Wii with these kind of first-person shooter controls with the Wiimote and everything, but made more sense after my first few hours when I realized this wasn't a shooter, this was an adventure game, where exploring is key and combat is kind of the thing you get to do to get to where you want and solve the next puzzle. It was a blast getting the satisfaction of getting an upgrade and trying to figure out, okay, what areas have I unlocked now? It's a great experiencing that. However, eventually I simply started to lose that momentum and motivation to continue through the game. It kind of just felt like it just kept going and going and going. And eventually I was like, wait, what am I doing now? What's the whole point of this? I barely got any story up to this certain point, and once I got there, I kind of fell off hard on the game. I was happy with where I left the game, and I'm excited to get back to the series and continue to play through Echoes whenever I get the chance. But overall, I had a great time with it, and it just suffered from it kind of dragging for me personally, and me starting to lose interest in that momentum in the game's exploration. The combat is fine, it serves as a backseat to the game's design, and the puzzles are great. It's a very good game, very good, solid, overall solid game. Now this is a neat 3D platformer with a unique style and design, but it's held back by its very basic and bare bones control, especially for combat. That's pretty much it. I played the first 2 levels and I was like, yeah, this is fine. It's fine. Whatever. A classic for the first half. Everybody loves this game, everybody remembers the exchange and how great of a level that was, but no one remembers how it starts to kind of be plagued by these vehicle sections and very simple objectives towards the last half. It's still a fun and engaging shooter that I recommend to anybody. It's a great short campaign, and I mean, fuck dude, it's 007, and it's Nightfire. What's not to love? This has to be the worst example of an old school boomer shooter revival, or whatever you want to call it, that tries way too hard to be an old school shooter. With these realistic visuals and a whole lot of unnecessary edginess that just ends up being annoying for me personally. The shooting is fine, but there's not much of a challenge to it to begin with, so it doesn't really do anything different. It's kind of the most generic, basic shooter ever. It's trying to be that Shadow Warrior revival or Doom 2016, but those 2 games did something completely different from the originals and paid respect to the originals. Here, it's just a generic shooter, and I guess that might have been what the original Rise of the Triad was, but this was just not it. City management games have always been a low-key favorite of mine, and this one is a great one. Honestly, not much to say. You build a city, and you try to keep people happy, and keep making them happy, you get more money, and you make the city even bigger. It's just a good way to pass time. I loved it and had a great time with it. This is a fun, fast-paced shooter. Its pace is almost similar to Hotline Miami. You start each level with an objective, you shoot guys, you do the objective, and jump off the building. It's pretty simple and short, with a really interesting and unique art style, with a surprising good sense of humor. I liked it. It was a lot of fun. These are cute little mini games that you do during loading screens. It's fun. So in the last video, I kind of forgot to mention how much Destiny 2 I have been playing. I've never been a huge fan, but I've always respected the series on how it committed to its fans and kept putting out so much quality content. And I was kind of itching to shoot stuff and loot, and I kind of tried going back and doing a 3rd playthrough of Borderlands 3, but it just didn't hit. So I decided to get back into Destiny 2, and boy, did it hit. It was the perfect answer to that. It did take me a while to get back to speed to what's going on with the whole new light edition and updates and all the expansions and stuff like that and where I needed to go, but once I did, I got into a nice flow of accepting bounties, doing quests and missions, and claiming bounties for all the loot, all while catching up on Forsaken and the Shadowkeep expansions. I'm still in the middle of Beyond Light and have not touched it for about a month, but just really haven't had the time to kind of wrap it up. But once I do, I'm gonna start focusing on the season challenges for the new season just started. Hopefully start exotic hunting, because man, I'm excited, and I've been really trying to look for that one game for me that it's a world that I could always go back to every week, do my dailies, do my weeklies, and get my loot and have a great time. And this might be it for me, honestly. But yeah, I highly recommend Destiny 2. It's changed so much since it launched, and I can't believe I enjoyed it as much as I did. So yeah, check it out. Yep, I'm still on the Assassin's Creed grind, and boy, this one was a doozy. At first, I wasn't feeling it simply because I had 100% of the game years ago. Even then, I did not have a great time with it because it kept crashing and it just wasn't working, and two times my save just got deleted for some reason. It was a whole thing. I was young and broke, but it wasn't like I was just gonna toss the game. I was kind of committed to this game no matter what. I eventually came back to it and started getting into a groove with it. Once I started getting the most basic skills in any Assassin's Creed game, like double assassinations or lockpicking chests, and yeah, they fucked up on this one. But hell, it scratched that let me turn off my brain and check some shit off the map itch. I always have. Gameplay wise, it's not that bad. Combat is actually pretty engaging once you master the perfect parries, because once you do that, you feel real good. but once they start throwing more than 4 to 5 dudes at you, good luck trying to get a hit in, because for some reason their AI just doesn't know when to stop hitting you or stop going for swings. So it kind of makes it difficult for you to parry, because they will still try to hit you while you're parrying other people. So you're just going to be stuck in this constant loop of parrying. I guess they were trying to go for a more assassin focused game, but when it's this game and they're trying to sell like, hey, you're building your own assassin because you can go on these raids in co-op, which I didn't check out because no one's playing the co-op, but you know what I mean. It just didn't feel like they were trying to accomplish that as much. They were trying to go for something, but it didn't work. Parkour feels great once you really start to learn it, and it feels satisfying going from point A to B. That is when it works. It'll still have its occasional jank that all of the Assassin's Creed have, and sometimes not letting you go where you want to go, but come on, you know what you signed up for. This ain't a polished game. But if it was, man, all this game needed was that. A bit of polish, a bit of tweaking. Combat could have been so much more satisfying and fun, similar to Ghost of Tsushima, with its bigger focus on parries. And the parkour could have been something so much more engaging with some polish. And hell, this could have been, man, this should have been the best Assassin's Creed game to date. But they really did mess it up. It's not as bad as everybody thinks. However, it's still very difficult to recommend it to anybody unless you really like open world games and having an unnecessary shitload of things to do and collect. But it's not as bad as people think. It has improved. It's not as glitchy. It still has its glitches here and there, surprisingly, but it's not as bad. Check it out if you want. I surprisingly had a great time with this game. Off the bat, I definitely prefer this game over Resident Evil 7. It's less survival horror, but that's not a bad thing. I enjoyed the bigger focus on combat because it makes the point A to B traversal much more enjoyable and less stressful, clutching onto those last bullets that you have. That said, it's still scary. Puzzles and exploration are just as engaging and satisfying as they were in Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is my favorite in this series, especially now knowing that if you're missing things in certain rooms, it makes exploration much more enjoyable this time. Combat was engaging, even if there are a few enemies that are a bit too bullet spongy for my liking, but I guess it makes sense with the much more abundant ammo that you get. The story is what it is, but that's honestly not why I play Resident Evil, especially for this dude. But overall, it was fine. The final hours do drag a bit, but it caps off a pretty satisfying final battle and conclusion. But everything in Castle Dimitris and House of Benvento was fire. Benvento being the definite highlight of the entire game, being this escape room-esque type section and the scariest section period. Honestly, I loved it. Overall, the game is great. I do give it a high recommendation, even if you did not like the prior title and you want more action in your horror like Resident Evil 4 or Dead Space 2. Man, what a classic. I forgot how much I really did love the Bioshock franchise until I played this game. What an intriguing story and world, backed up with great combat and the greatest atmosphere that you can get in the game. It is, however, not without its flaws, and its biggest one being that it kind of just keeps going. Spoilers for Bioshock in a bit, but like for real, leave, because how have you not played this classic? It's like a 12-year-old game or some shit. Like, get on that. Come on, play the game. Come on. Alright, spoilers right now. I warned you. But once you do reach Andrew Ryan and that whole crescendo of a twist with the "would you kindly" and finally killing him is one of the best moments ever, right? Such a powerful moment that leaves you like, what the fuck? There's this whole... my whole life was a lie, this whole conspiracy, oh my god, it's so crazy. But there's more game after that, and it kind of just keeps going and going and going. The pacing of the game kind of just peaks at that moment, so when the game kind of just keeps going, I lost interest immediately. I had a similar thing happen with RE Village, but at least the gameplay changes up a bit. Here, you kinda keep doing the same thing, fighting the same enemies, doing the same shitty hacking minigame. A lot of people sleep on Bioshock 2, but I feel like this needs to be said. That's the better one out of the two in the trilogy, honestly. I decided to skip on it this time. I started doing a playthrough of it right after, but I stopped because I realized, wait a minute, I already replayed this game like 7 times. But honestly, that game's combat is so much more refined, the story is just as engaging, the pacing just keeps you going. It does drag, but there's so much more variety in terms of enemies, plasmids, weapons, and environments. Criticisms aside, these are still games I consider classics and must play. Hell, the whole trilogy is a classic, and as of recording this, I just beat Bioshock Infinite, and you'll hear about that later. But for now, hell, these games are awesome. These guys are incredible. It's a great series, and both do such a great job delivering an engaging story and an interesting, atmospheric, and immersive world that's backed up with badass combat. I love Bioshock. This might be one of the greatest remakes I've ever played, at least one where I've actually played the original. But man, what a great way to re-experience the original Half-Life. I had a blast with it, and it was very much faithful to the original. To a T, and even improves on a bunch of sections and adds on to them, especially in the later Zen levels that they honestly just finished updating, I think about a year ago or something. There's honestly not much for me to say other than this is a great fan-made remake of a classic. Crowbar Collective nailed it with pretty much everything. It amplified the game into it being an instant classic. It's a must-play for anybody that has an appreciation for single-player shooters or games as a whole, because the Half-Life series is something truly special, and what a perfect way to re-experience this classic. What a surprise this game was, honestly. I never heard about it until one day, while playing Black Mesa, I started watching this Nintendo Nindy World thing that I just happened to turn on while I was playing, and this was announced, and I was like, alright, this is neat, this looks cool. Followed by further finding out that it was dropping on Game Pass that same day. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna download it, I'm gonna play it, and hell did I love it. If you're unaware, Boyfriend Dungeon is a dungeon crawler where you date your weapons and build relationships with them while fighting through dungeons that represent your fears. This strange combination of the social links system from Persona in terms of how you build relationships with your weapons, and the combat is pretty standard for it being a dungeon crawler. Kind of plays similarly to Hades or Death's Door. I honestly loved my experience with the game. It's such an enjoyable and chill game with a pretty decent story too, with a bunch of characters that you learn to love, especially Valeria. You already know that was my main girl, so you gotta commit to one weapon for the entire story, which is pretty short to be honest, and sweet thankfully, or be a hoe and date everybody and get your relationship rank to max with every single weapon and get more abilities with each weapon, which is really cool. Whenever you reach a certain level in a relationship, you gain another ability with that weapon, which is awesome. I highly recommend you at least check it out. It's a bunch of fun. It's good for a week. It's really short, honestly. It's a great short experience that I had a great time with. So check it out. So I've been meaning for a long time to finally go through the entire Metal Gear series, aside from the spin-offs like Portable Ops or Acid or whatever, since the only games I really did experience on my own was Metal Gear Solid 2 and 5. That's about it. So a few months back I tried playing through the original Metal Gear Solid title, but honestly that shit is dated. Until I remembered that there was a sneaky little remake on the GameCube that remade the entire game with the MGS2 engine, and boy was this much more preferred. Yes, I know the cutscenes are a bit much. And yeah, the first person camera kind of breaks the whole stealth in this game, but whatever. But man, is it fun to see Snake doing crazy and over the top shit. It does at some points take away from the tension, but I do recommend you go watch a playthrough of the original if you can't really stand the controls but kind of do want to see a more faithful version of the story, and then maybe try going through and play through Twin Snakes and kind of see the differences. The only difference is that Twin Snakes is a little bit more over the top in terms of how their cutscenes are presented, but generally it's honestly the same game with just a much more quote-unquote modern control scheme using the engine from Metal Gear Solid 2, which was my first game and I loved it at the time. But at the end of the day, Metal Gear Solid is Metal Gear Solid, and this was a great way to experience the story. and the world for the first time, honestly. And for me personally, it's a much more accessible way to play, controls wise. But like, come on, Bluepoint, guess what we want? We really do want a remake of the first game in the Fox engine or something. That'd be crazy. I have a crazy idea though. Bear with me, pause. Remake the MSX games and Metal Gear Solid into one package. Give us the Metal Gear Solid Origins Collection. Give us Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid all bundled together in the Fox engine. Either that or do the whole PS2 trilogy with a port of Metal Gear Solid 4, like something. I don't know. Just give us more Metal Gear, man. Come on. This series is incredible. Come on. So, yeah. This is fine. I'll be honest, I wasn't too big of a fan of Metal Gear. I'm stuck on Metal Gear. I wasn't too big of a fan with Final Fantasy VII Remake to begin with. Playing it last year, I thought it was okay. The story was a bit too corny for my liking, and the combat just doesn't feel as satisfying as it looks. But anyway, I decided to check out the Yuffie DLC, and yeah, it was fine as well. Her combat style is pretty interesting, having almost 2 different movesets for melee and ranged attacks. The synergy system was cool and flashy, kind of having you combine attacks rather than switching characters. And the Fort Condor game is, it's there. I mean, yeah, it's there if you want to play it, if you're into Gwents or whatever. It's just another minigame for you to play through. It's a fine DLC. It's a bit overpriced for me personally, since the story is only about 2 to 3 hours, with probably a few more hours if you do side quests and more of the Fort Condor stuff. But yeah, it was fine for me personally. If you didn't really dig the remake, like me, there's a high chance you won't enjoy this. They don't change much. It's more of the same. So yeah, it's fine. This was a pleasant surprise. So for the past few months, I've been getting into checking out mods for some of my favorite games ever since I just got this new awesome laptop. From Fallout to Half-Life 2 to now Portal. And honestly, y'all, this might be the best Portal mod I've ever played so far. You know that feeling that you got from playing the original Portal? Hell, even Portal 2, that magic and that feeling you got from solving all these puzzles. Playing Aperture Tag was the first time I had that feeling playing those first 2 games in almost 10 years now. Its puzzles are designed so well. Even gives you puzzles from the first 2 games with that whole paint spin to it. Oh yeah, you might ask what's more different if you kind of haven't figured it out by yourself, but this whole mod basically replaces the portal gun with the gel gun. Orange gel makes you fast, blue gel makes you bouncy. And man, there's some fun to be had with these 2 simple aspects. Puzzles are smartly designed, and man, it's just fun to have that surge of dopamine when solving these puzzles. I highly recommend it. It's free, and just play it. It's free. It makes you feel smart. It's fire. It's fun. Go check it out. Yep, almost done with the series. I know I went out of order again. Whatever, fucking sue me. But yeah, after this, the last game I do need to replay is Syndicate. I won't be replaying Odyssey because I literally just played that last year. But once I'm done with Syndicate, I'm gonna move to Valhalla because it's been stuck on my hard drive for fucking since the day I got my PS5. So yeah. Anyway, Assassin's Creed Origins is just way too fucking big to replay. So I just decided to check out the DLCs instead, since I never played them. And that was a wise choice because, yep, it's just more Assassin's Creed, especially the hidden ones. The hidden ones is the one with little to almost no changes. It does add some story to Bayek and the First Brotherhood, which is cool. There's not much changes in terms of combats, or I think you do get a couple new skills, but even then I don't think I even used them or unlocked them. It is interesting revisiting this game though, since I spent pretty much the entire year playing Odyssey, and not having the combat abilities and the combat being a bit more simple than I remembered. But yeah, it was interesting in that regard. It's the same game with another map of stuff to do, and honestly so is the Curse of the Pharaohs. It does add a few more skills that are a bit more interesting, and these really cool environments to explore that are unfortunately overshadowed with another huge map of sand and mountains and a river. And honestly, I kind of prefer these more afterlife environments because they're so visually interesting and cool, but they're kind of just there in the corner and they're pretty small. Thankfully, they do start to commit to the more interesting and crazy and mythological environments in Odyssey's DLCs, but I guess they were just a little bit more hesitant in Origins. But then again, there's Final Fantasy content, if y'all don't remember that, in the main game, and you do get to fight a huge Egyptian god. But alright, it was an okay time, just more Assassin's Creed, while I get to watch streams and listen to podcasts, but that's pretty much it. And last but certainly not least, I played through Quake. I played this at quite possibly the best timing ever. I literally bought the game the day before the remaster was announced, but shit, it's a good game. I must warn you though, this is hard. It's a difficult game. I suggest you keep that finger on that F5 to quick save often, cause man, this game is unforgiving sometimes. Even then, I had a great time with it. It's aged pretty well, all things considered. I know it's a remastered. You will be facing a lot of bullshittery here though, but overall it's a solid game. It does get repetitive, and environments are, well, they're just brown, gray, and ugly, and there's not much of enemy variety. However, for its time, it's easy to see how revolutionary it was, and it still kind of is. It's impressive, and I recommend y'all at least check it out, especially with this remaster they put out that is on Game Pass. Crazy, but yeah, check it out. And that's it. Let me know what y'all thoughts, what y'all been playing, what y'all thought about my thoughts, and what y'all might recommend to me, and what games I should be playing, and all that great stuff. I really appreciate each and every one of you that watches these videos. Don't forget to do all the YouTube stuff, the like, the sub, the share, the comment, all that good stuff, so the channel keeps getting better and keeps getting bigger, and I keep making more videos like these, and even go back and do some more hip-hop stuff soon. That's coming. Don't worry, I'm working on stuff. Again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. Remember to love each other and stay safe out there.